Where the hell do you start when it comes to reviewing Death Stranding 2? The first game was such an anomaly in the gaming landscape with its open world Paperboy meets Metal Gear genre fusion. It made it a strange one to recommend to people despite it being one of my favourite games of last generation. Of course, that didn't matter, with Kojima Productions recently celebrating the game having over 20 million players, proving that Hideo's cachet still has clout beyond the hardcore. It's 6 years on from that release though, and with over 150 hours sunk into that last game, it's fair to say that this was one of my more anticipated titles. Does Death Stranding 2 reinvent the wheel yet again? Well, no, but I don't think it needed to. The game starts in Mexico, with Sam and Lou living their life in hiding from the UCA, having connected all of America. After a visually breathtaking opening sequence that easily finds its way into the top 10 most impressive things I think I've ever seen in a game list, Sam's joined by Fragile, who encourages him to start linking up new sites to the chiral network before things start to get a bit Kojima. Now, I'm not going to dive into specifics within the story, but needless to say that much like the first game, you'll need to detach your brain from any earthly logic for some of the beats. It's a flight of fantasy, with twisting branches that shoot off in multiple directions before converging into a glorious twisted knot of chaos that it feels like only Kojima and his team can pull off. Of course, at times there is less subtext than a Garth Marenghi novel, but at this point it's part of the game's charm. It doesn't matter to me that a man whose hand has been taken away by the tar that bubbles under the Earth's surface is called Tarman, or that your new companion through the game is a man whose soul is trapped in his daughter's doll and called Doll Man. Yes, it's ridiculous, and yes, sometimes it's on the nose, but honestly, it kind of works. If you're not a fan of Kojima's previous output, this will do absolutely nothing to change your opinions of him, but as someone who's grown up with Metal Gear, it's not a new phenomenon. And while there are elements of the story that are as subtle as a brick to the cranium, there's a really important undercurrent here that talks about grief. Sam and his crew have all been forced to experience grief and loss both before and during the game, and the way that's handled throughout is sensitive and well-meaning. At any point in your private room, you can have a conversation with Dollman, who despite his appearance offers up some words of wisdom that at points didn't feel like words between the characters in a game, but also a genuine piece of heartfelt advice to anyone who's navigating the waters of grief. And, as with the first game, it's those moments of quiet in the chaos that really allow the game to breathe and provide a point of reflection. Back to the game itself then, and after a series of events, you're whisked off to Australia, where the bulk of Death Stranding 2 takes place. Sam, now part of Fragile's new Drawbridge crew, is tasked with connecting the continent, much like he did with America in the first game. I'd read that the game had started off as essentially DLC for the first game, and in the first few hours it definitely shows this. At its core, this is a sequel in the truest sense of the word, taking what was great about the first game and expanding on everything, as well as introducing new elements and concepts, but never firmly drifting away from that core. There are a bunch of new and upgraded gadgets and structures that allow you to traverse the map in increasingly fun ways, as well as a slew of quality of life improvements from the first game. The most handy of all being the sticky cannon. This attaches to a vehicle and automatically snags any cargo that you drive past, which allows you to rack up a huge stack of lost items to quickly boost your rankings with any of the recipients across the map. You are still ultimately connecting different sites across Australia to link them onto the network, you're still managing cargo and planning routes, and you're still finding more ridiculous ways to travel this huge open world, all while avoiding the enemies that will undoubtedly line your path. And it's with these enemies that the new elements really do come to the fore. As well as the BTs and human enemies from the first game, you're introduced to a new form of enemy in the Ghost Mechs. These creepy robot things crop up fairly early on and are a bit of a challenge to take down. Of course, the link here is with Higgs, Troy Baker's delightfully sociopathic big bad from the first game, who is here to yet again torment Sam with his appearances and throw a spanner in the works at the most inopportune moments. Yoji Shinkawa has outdone himself once again with his designs in this game, and the Ghost Mech contingent is no exception. In fact, everything in the game oozes style, and that's down to Kojima's long-term collaborator. This long-term collaboration started way back with Metal Gear Solid, and it's not just in the art style where this is apparent. It was noted in some of the previews that this game feels a lot more like Metal Gear Solid 5 than you'd expect, and the comparison's definitely accurate. More than ever, you'll find yourself planning, scanning and executing your mission strategy, marking enemies on your HUD and either picking them off one by one before extracting, or just going in all guns blazing to eliminate everything in your path. Hell, at one point I'd been playing for multiple hours late at night and I just wanted to go to bed, so I drove a truck straight through a base that had some cargo that I needed, picked it up using that sticky cannon and drove out while being peppered with enemy fire, all without stopping. There's no right or wrong way of dealing with the things in this game. Back to my point though, and there were several times in here that I went, oh, that's like that bit in Metal Gear, and there's several knowing winks and nods to camera that make it very clear that this is a love letter to Kojima's career as well as a sequel. Your new crew ship, the DHV Magellan, looks suspiciously similar to Metal Gear Rex at points, for example, and of course, there was that dude in the trailers with the bandana that looked very Snake-esque. Well, that dude's name is Neil. He's essentially this game's version of Mads Mikkelsen's Cliff from the first game, complete with the creepy different reality missions. I said earlier that the opening sequence of the game was visually breathtaking, but the first time you encounter Neil is, quite frankly, one of the most ridiculous things I've seen in a game from a technical perspective. Neil is one of a handful of new characters that pepper the narrative of DS2, with the aforementioned Tarman and Dollman, with Rainey, a pregnant woman who can summon Timefall and reverse its effects, Charlie, an animatronic head who provides you with missions, and Tomorrow, a mysterious woman who emerges from the depths of the tar inside a chrysalis, who then joins your team. Of course, there's plenty of new preppers in Australia too, some of whom lead to very entertaining and light-hearted moments, so it's well worth trying to connect all of them. Oh, and if you ever encounter a BT and struggle to get past it, it also has one of the best options I've seen in a game over screen, ever. On to the technical aspects now. It's fair to say the game looks absolutely astonishing. From that first sequence in Mexico to the final segments of the game, it is a real visual treat. Australia's vistas are incredibly varied, whether it's in the desert facing a sandstorm or high up in the mountains overcoming a blizzard. There were plenty of moments that I had to just utter wow under my breath. I played through the game on a PS5 Pro in performance mode, and here's where it gets a little bit interesting. We'll have full performance analysis going up, including comparisons between the PS5 and the PS5 Pro, so do go ahead and check that one out. But on the Pro, I noticed some stuttering and what appeared to be dips in frame rate going on when I got to the back half of the game. Running it through our frame rate analyzer and doing some manual frame counting myself, what was weird was that sometimes it was definitely refreshing 60 frames every second, and when it was played back full screen, it still had that weird stutter to it. It was very strange. I've reached out to PR and the studio to see if there's anything that's known, because I've spoken to some other people that have been playing the game as well, and they've said that theirs is consistently smooth, so it's a strange one. I don't know if it's just me seeing things, but yeah, it definitely felt odd at times when it got quite busy. On the base PS5, these issues are there as well, and in a few more areas. So away from the capture setup that we've got, I did put it into 120 frames a second mode and still noticed some of the same issues. It's a bit of a shame because the game does look absolutely sensational, and I'm sure with another patch it can be cleaned up, and when it runs in the 120 frames a second mode on the Pro, it holds a frame rate that's above 60 for the most part, so I don't really know what's happening here. It's very strange. But to wrap up, Death Stranding 2 is the aliens to the first game's Alien. Kojima Productions has taken all of the feedback on board from the first game and introduced plenty more action-orientated elements into it, and the pacing feels so much better as a result. All the while, they've taken everything from that first game and improved it, wrapping it up in a story that even the most hardened fan will be finding Easter eggs in months down the line. There are points in the story that I will fully admit to not completely grasping what was going on, but it had its hooks in me and it didn't let them out. Over 60 hours later in the game, I still want to dive back and strengthen my bond with all of the preppers. I still want to uncover any mysteries that remain, and I still honestly just want to chill out in my red and white off-road pickup and just cruise down the highways that the community have built. Hideo Kojima, much like Sam, continues to deliver. Thank you for joining us, guys. If you've enjoyed this video review, please do drop us a like down below. Leave us a comment, let us know what you're picking Death Stranding 2 up. And go and check out all the other content that we have as well. We're going to have trophy guides, we're going to have performance analysis, we're going to have all kinds of fun stuff that's kind of been plucked out of this game. I've absolutely loved my time with it. I think it's been superb, and I will definitely be diving back in once the game is out to everybody to see what everybody else can create and build in this world. But yeah, thank you for joining us. It means the world to us if you've spent a little bit of time with us today. So we'll catch you soon. All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.